Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all. This movie is a horror film from the UK, English language, released in the year 2023, directed by Robert Morgan, and this film is called Stopmotion. So Stopmotion is about a woman who is into stop motion, making movies, because her mother, a very domineering mother, brought her up in this environment. So this is all that this woman knows. And so she's going to university, but at the same time she's actually helping the mother with a film that they're making. But unfortunately the mother has a stroke, she's in hospital, and so the daughter sees it her responsibility to get this job done. But the further she goes into the project, the more she starts to lose herself, and that line between reality and fantasy becomes increasingly blurred. So what happens at that point on is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on stop motion. I'm a massive fan of the art of stop motion, and so when I saw the trailer to this movie I thought it looked very enticing. So having that in mind, I went into this movie with the expectations that I was going to really enjoy it, and for the most part I enjoyed it, but there were some glaring issues that I had with the movie that prevented me from absolutely loving it, which is something I'll go into a little bit later. But what I loved about the movie is it's very, very creepy. The stop motion is fantastically done. So if you are into a different style of horror film, then this is a movie that is definitely for you. I thought as the movie progresses, this stop motion becomes creepier and creepier, and it's an insight into the head of this woman. What she's actually going through, what she's feeling, is actually emulated through the stop motion. And so I thought that was really good. The relationship between reality and fantasy was actually quite strong, and so I thought that the main character was played very, very well. She does a good job at evolving this character that you can really relate to, you can feel sympathy for, because there are signs of issues that she's had in her upbringing that has created the person that she is. And so she's a very vulnerable individual, and that vulnerability is really preyed upon within the horror elements to this movie that I thought worked actually fairly well. So there are issues that come into the film that I thought really complicated the matters, and it created a sense of interest, and so that interest remains from start to finish, which is something that I really like. There are some really, really nasty moments, but it's that really creepy, intense atmosphere that the movie managed to create that makes it worth watching. And so if you're into this kind of thing, definitely go out there and see this movie. It reminded me of the films of Jan Svankmajer. Jan Svankmajer is an absolute master at stop motion, and he integrates stop motion with real-time movies in a way that's very unique, and this movie reminded me of that. It's not quite as good as Jan Svankmajer, but this is a film that emulated that sort of style, and it, as I said, it creates that fantasy and reality, and the further this movie goes on, that fantasy and reality is starting to become very blurred, and it's starting to integrate with each other, which is very, very dangerous. And so it does have a very psychological impact. So if you're into that kind of thing, go out there and see it. I thought the continuity was fairly decent. As I said, it kept my interest at least, and so that was something that I want in a movie. But the reason why I didn't love the film is that it is actually quite predictable. It's a film, it does have some underlying themes, and those underlying themes have actually been looked at before. And because this movie doesn't strike a difference to the point of actually being unpredictable, you kind of know where this movie's going. And so that was my ultimate problem with the film, is that it doesn't really strive to be completely different. It does have that similar sort of formula in telling a story of, you know, these underlying themes. I'm not going to tell you what the themes are about, but it's actually quite devastating, these themes, and it gives you a lot of sympathy for the main character. But as I said, other films have actually depicted these themes, which actually creates a cheat sheet for the viewer. You kind of know what's going to happen. You know there are some characters that's thrown into the film where you know why they're there, and it's supposed to be a twist, but the twist just doesn't work. And so by the end of the film, yes, it is actually quite shocking, the end, but as I said, it's a movie that felt familiar. Within all of the artistic value that the film has, the familiarity of the film actually hurts its storytelling, and that prevents it from being an absolutely fantastic movie. But it is different, it is very, very well made. The stop motion set pieces are incredibly creepy, and so as I said, that reality and fantasy meshing together is very interesting, but it just doesn't work as well as I wanted it to, because as I said, that similar sort of feeling that you get with the storytelling is what holds it down. So that's not a massive criticism of what was a fairly entertaining film. Go out there and see it. I'm going to give this film 3 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, watching movies, and I'll see you later.